Howdy, everyone, and welcome to Off the Rail Podcast, your podcast for everything circus. We're your off the rail ringmasters. I'm R. This is B.
How's it going, everyone? Our podcast is going to be based off learning about everything circus, behind the scenes, the true life stories that performers and employees will bring to our show.
And with that said, today's sponsor is brought to you by Shocks. More about them later. And today's guest is from, one of my favorite decades. Anybody who knows me knows what decade that is, the 80s.
Rail Productions presents.
Crack of dawn, we're leaving town, steel wheels humming through the sound. Canvas dreams on 100 cars, we're hauling legends under stars. No saddle, no chute, just a raging flame. This ain't a rodeo, it's a wilder game. We're off the rail, running bold. This circus life don't fit no mold. Where the lion roars and the fire flies high, and the high wire boys chase the sky. The sun ain't setting, we're just getting loud. We ride that three-ring life real proud.
Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to Ron Toto Johnson. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you guys?
I'm doing wonderful. B, take it.
So, how's it going, Ron?
Fantastic. I am so glad to be here. I'm like giggly.
So I'm curious, what got you in the path of clowning? What in your childhood that projected that to become a clown?
Well, some folks know that I started clowning at 10, but I actually started performing a couple of years before that. When I was in second grade, it was just the spring concert from my elementary school, Central Avenue Elementary School in beautiful Naugatuck, Connecticut. It was our spring concert, music concert, and back then, all the grades would go to their classrooms and wait until it was your time to sing. So the parents would watch all of the kids in the entire school. So after the concert, I'm meeting back up with my parents, and the principal, Mr. Mealy, wants to talk to my parents in his office. So I'm now panicking because I was a good kid. I didn't mess around. I
I
did
know
good in
that feeling.
school, and all of a sudden the principal wants to talk to my parents. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So there's a few minutes, and then my parents come out, and my mom's crying, and I'm like, oh no, now I'm
Yep.
dead.
That's not good.
And my mom just comes out of the office, and she's crying, and comes over and hugs me. What in the world? Well, one, she gets over the a little bit of sobbing going on there. She tells me that I had been selected to be in a gifted and talented program starting
Right
in
on.
third grade. And it ran from third grade to eighth grade, and every year you would be reevaluated. And as it turns out, I was in it every year from third to eighth grade. So what I didn't know was some of these fun games that I had been picked to go in the office to go do. My second grade teacher had a few of us from the class go and met with this person, and we just played these fun games and puzzles and this and that. And well, it turns out it was kind of like a combination IQ test, academic test, creativity test, and I was selected to go to this gifted and talented program. So starting in third grade, one day a week, I would leave my elementary school and be bused to a different elementary school where the gifted and talented program was held. Had a wonderful teacher slash instructor slash leader, Eileen Cooper, who didn't really directly teach us, but guided us through independent study. It was a great big box full of manila folders with all kinds of things that you could study. And so some of the things I did had a lot to do with science. Like I got to dissect fish and frogs and learn about anatomy and things like that. But then I discovered a subject that changed my life, and that was puppetry. There was instructions on how to make your own puppets out of paper mache and balloons and cardboard tubes, and then making little glove puppets. And so I learned about making puppets, and I wrote puppet shows. And then I found a file about mime, and so I studied mime and doing pantomime and movie making. When we made Super 8 films, and I actually won an Oscar. Well, our
Wow,
version
that's
of the
fantastic.
Oscar for I wrote a film called The Zombie, and I was the zombie, and I
That's
won
awesome.
Best Actor. And so that's how performing started for me. Was third, fourth, fifth grade. Then in fifth grade, in the spring of 1977, I saw an ad for a clown workshop, a clown class through the youth services division of the Parks and Recreation Department in my hometown. And it was taught by a woman named Marlene Soika, who I thought was positively ancient. Turns out that she was like 19 years old. I found out years later. Somebody tracked me down because saw me on Facebook writing about this clown class I took, and the teacher was Marlene Soika, and I wonder what happened to her. And somebody saw my post on Facebook and said, "I know her. She lives in Texas now. She's getting ready to turn 60. Would you send her a note?" And I sent her an autographed picture and things
Wow.
like that. Well, my age at the time and her age at the time showed that, yeah, she was all of about 19 when she taught the class. But I taught this class. I did teach the class later. That's a whole other story.
That must have been nice to
But
reconnect with her again.
I didn't get to talk to her directly. It was kind of a
Ah,
surprise party.
okay.
But when her friend found me, they decided to have her surprise 60th birthday party with a clown theme, all
Oh, wow.
because of finding me and finding
Nice.
out that one of her students became a Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey clown.
Very
That's cool.
Uh, but so I took this class and I taught just a little mime style makeup, just basically a mime makeup with a little bit of color. It wasn't a full white face. We didn't learn anything about tramp clowns. I never even heard of an Auguste until about 4 years later.
uh,
But I took this class and we had a big fair on the town green of all the kids that had taken classes through the youth services. I took the clown class, so we did a little clown show, and then the dancing, did dancing, and art was on display. And so it was really what got me started was this clown class. And then a magic shop opened in my hometown when I was 14, and then it just
Oh,
skyrocketed
yeah.
from there.
That'll do it.
oh man,
Now,
I remember the magic shop when I was a kid.
oh, yeah.
Something you got lost in and be like, "Mom, I need this. You don't understand." Like I
Yeah,
had
Oh,
those
yeah.
moments in the. It was a
yeah.
spy
And it
magic
Been
shop,
there.
so it
literally
was
was a
mixed.
5 minute walk from my house. It was like
Oh, boy.
it was
Yeah.
only open a couple of days a week, but I started hanging out there and I met other kids that were interested in clowns and magic, and we formed our own little troupe. And then so we all
Nice.
worked together as five of us that all worked together. Yeah.
I heard
Uh-huh.
it. You started
Yeah.
a troop at
Yeah.
10 years old.
Now, I was 14 when I got into the
14.
troupe.
Okay.
14, yeah, because of that magic shop. And so we became, and then we would do some work together, the five of us. And then we had two groups. My buddy Glenn Garofano and I were the Colossal Clowns. And then the Masters of Madness were Daryl Hammond, Joe Norton, and a guy named Chris Allison.
Mhm.
And a lot of people out there are going to recognize that name, Chris Allison, because he became a Ringling clown. He became a Ringling boss clown. He was on America's Got Talent.
Oh,
He
wow.
was like a superstar, and we were kids together.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Question. Looking back at what you've done, and we're talking about your childhood clown, what would you go back to your first show and tell yourself now, back then?
My very first show on that green in Naugatuck, Connecticut was on June 21st, 1977. And if
Holy cow.
I could go back and tell that kid what I know now, I would say you will not believe what your life is going to be.
Oh, yeah.
I was a little kid, basically playing clown in Naugatuck, Connecticut. How in the world I've been to 29 countries, either directly or indirectly, because of being a clown. I've worked for the biggest circus in the world. I worked for Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. I've worked for incredible circuses, Circus Olympia in Sweden. I've worked for Hammond Circus Productions. I did a 1 month tour with Alan C. Hill's Great American Circus. I've worked for mud shows. I've worked for the biggest circus in the world. I've worked incredible festivals around the world, incredible stage shows. That 10-year-old kid had no idea what was coming.
He had
Oh
no
yeah.
clue.
Oh
So
yeah.
what was next after 14?
After 14, from 14 to 18 was hanging out at the magic shop, doing birthday parties and fairs and festivals and, whatever would come around Connecticut that I could get into. The fella that owned the magic shop, Walt Killfeather, Walter the Wizard, it was a labor of love for him. It was a little hobby. That magic shop didn't make money. It cost him money to have that magic shop, but he was open for a couple of years, let us kids hang out there.
Oh, I
Um,
bet. Yeah.
and he would get us work. I got so much work through him. Another fella named Larry Parsons, JJ the Magic Clown, had a similar shop in Waterbury, Connecticut, next town up. Um, Joined the local magic club in our area, our local clown club, the Sawdust Clowns in Stratford, Connecticut. There were incredible clowns that I looked up to there. Rabbi Asagna, Leo Desolates, Joe Barney were the creative clown company. They were my idols. Um, there were other clowns in that club that were absolutely incredible that led by example. So I
Oh,
looked terrible when I started going there. I had found out there was a clown called an Auguste. I had no idea how to do it, so I was just putting slop on my face. I looked terrible, but they guided me. They showed me how to do it right. And so within a couple of years of joining that club, and going to clown conventions, I started winning awards for my makeup in the junior division, because they were showing me how to do it correctly and how to give your all, and really gave me a good business sense on how you should present yourself to your clients, to your audiences.
Probably a
Something
good
that I still hold dear today was what they taught me
probably a
back in those
good
days.
clowning foundation, how to like round
Y-
off.
Yeah, yeah, I would not have been able to go on to have my career without those folks like
yeah.
Walt the
Sure.
Wizard,
Very
Larry
nice.
Parsons, Rob, Joe, um, Leo, and many others in those clubs that really helped me. But then I found out there was clown college too. So I
When
was
did you get
14.
there?
Chris Allison had actually come over to my yard. We must have been rehearsing for a show or something, and he had a newspaper article about Ringling Clown College auditions going to be in Hartford, Connecticut. And this is around
Okay.
like 81. And I'm like, wait, there's a clown college? I had never heard of it. And he goes, yeah. So to make a long story short, we convince our parents to let us skip school. Now we have an eighth
Oh
grader.
wow.
I was a freshman, and there was another freshman. Then Chris and another kid were sophomores in high school. We convinced our parents to let us skip school, get on a bus, go from Waterbury, Connecticut. We were in Naugatuck, so one of our parents, I think it was my dad, dropped us all off at the bus station in Waterbury. We take the bus to Hartford, Connecticut, go to the clown college auditions at like noon or whatever. We're all way too young to get in. We all go in clown makeup. We don't know any different. And we bring stuff to take our makeup off. And then we're going to go see like I don't know, it's a show at 4 o'clock or something. It was maybe, 4 and 8 that day or something. And we're going to go see the 4 o'clock show and then catch the bus home. So we go with this harebrained idea to let you get our parents to let us do this. And my parents said, okay, but all your work from school gets done. If there's the slightest
Oh
problem
yeah.
with you getting your work done, this whole clown thing is over. School comes first. They're
Fair
always
enough.
very, very, very. I don't want to say strict because that's the wrong connotation. They were very school comes first.
Stern.
We fully support your clowning, but
Right.
your grades come first. And
Gotta get the education.
yeah, I was a straight A student, National Honor Society. My grades never slipped. And so we
Very
started going
good.
to college auditions. And we would go, and then the next week they were in New Haven, Connecticut. And however we did it, we convinced our parents to let us skip school again and go the
Wow.
next week. I did that for 4 years. I would skip school and go in Hartford and go in New Haven. And finally, my senior year of high school, I can't remember if it was Hartford or New Haven, one of the two towns. And I'm finally old enough to apply, because I told my parents this is what I want to do. Um, and so I go to the audition, and
They
a
didn't
clown
think
by
you
the
were
name of
clowning
Jimmy.
around.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
they would a select few of us were told to stay after the audition, and a Ringling clown would bring us up into the seats to chat. And the clown that happened to bring me was it was on the Blue Show, was a fellow named Jimmy Graham, and he pulls me up and he goes, "I know you're in, you know you're in." And I didn't, but that's what he's telling me. He goes, "I know you're in, you know you're in. Now tell me more about Chris Allison when he was a kid." Because by this time, Chris had gone through clown college. He was a year older than me and was on the Blue unit.
Oh, wow.
So he's, "Tell me about Chris Allison when he was a kid." So, but I didn't know I was in. I sat on my bed on a Saturday afternoon and spent 8 hours filling out the clown college application and sending it in, but I didn't know I was in. Um, I was hoping I was in. I was banking everything on being in.
Right.
My parents were banking everything on me being in because they knew it was my dream.
Oh,
And
yeah.
matter of fact, my parents got called into my high school senior guidance counselor's office one time and said, "Your son is throwing his life away by wanting to be a clown in the circus when he's a straight A student." And my mom is 5'3" of you don't say anything bad about my kids,
Oh, I
and
bet.
was all up in her face saying, "This is my son's dream, and you will not crush his dream, and we support his dream."
Oh, yeah.
And so yeah, so
Well,
there
that
was
must be
at
nice to
the
have very supporting parents.
oh my word, my dad till the day he passed away fully supported my career. When I was 14 and
Right
doing
on.
birthday parties, I did not have a driver's license. So my dad would drive me to whatever house I was performing at, would sit in the car reading his book, and
Nice.
every
Nice.
once in a while, maybe somebody from the party would say, "Sir, would you like a piece of cake?" And bring it out to him. But
Doing what
everybody I
dads
worked
do.
for, knew I was a 14-year-old kid. There was no like hiding the fact. I was a 14-year-old kid, and I always guaranteed my show. My buddy Glenn and I were primarily the ones doing parties together, and so we would work. You would get the two 14-year-old kids for the same price as you would get one adult professional clown for.
Oh, nice.
But my dad ate more cake at strangers' houses and sat in the car more often than I can count. But he fully supported
Right
my
on.
career. And my mom is 80 years old and still supports everything I do to this
Hey,
day.
Very
moms are
nice.
moms, man.
So yeah,
Speaking of
exactly.
cake, speaking of
Oh,
cake, I gotta know, did you guys have a pie tradition where if it was somebody's birthday, you pied them? The clowns usually did it. Like for us, the
we
clowns
sure.
always know.
Oh, and I have no idea where that came from. That came well before I joined the clown college in 1985. Joined
Uh,
Ringling in 1986 on the red unit, and it was tradition when I was on the show. I don't know how far back it went, but yeah, on your birthday, there's two traditions. One, they had to put the kibosh on eventually. One, I'll just mention briefly, was
all
the
right.
showgirls. If it was your birthday, the showgirls and the girl clowns would all lipstick, and the girl clowns would put whatever makeup they had on their lip and would refresh it, not powder it, and they'd kiss you right before finale. So you'd have all these lip marks
Uh,
all over your face going into finale. But finally, the show said, you can't be doing that. You're changing your makeup. It looks terrible. You can't do that. But the pie tradition continued on. And if you got pie during the show, ho, too bad, so sad. You better be fixing that makeup and get that pie off your face before your next number because you're expected to be out on the floor.
Sounds like there's a
Um,
story there.
yeah, well, the best pie I ever did came right after the show. Um, we had a clown. Kevin McDonough. He was from my clown college class. He was on the red unit 1 year.
So you were on the
And
red unit, right?
I was on the red unit, yeah.
Awesome. We were on the red unit as well.
Yeah.
The red unit's the best.
I know.
Don't tell anybody I said that. But Kevin had one of the sit-down trunks. He didn't have a tall steamer. He had a sit-down trunk. And so Kevin was out changing for finale or whatever, and we emptied out his trunk and hid everything. And then I rushed out of finale, got out of wardrobe, and got in Kevin's trunk with the pie and with the lid closed. And so Kevin comes in, and my buddy Brad Zupp, who was also a classmate of ours at Clown College and was on the Red Show for 2 years, says, "Oh, Kevin, do you have that book that I wanted to borrow?" Because legitimately, Brad had a book that he was going to borrow from Kevin. I goes, "Oh, yeah, it's right here in my trunk." And when Kevin lifts up the lid, I pop up like a jack in a box and pie him.
Nice.
So that's the best pie I ever did.
Nice.
The best pie I probably ever got was, I can't remember what birthday it was. January 21st is my birthday. And so it was my birthday, and I knew at some point I was going to get pied, but it didn't happen, during the show or anything. Well, my family or somebody, or it was a cousin, or there was, for some reason, there was somebody taking me out after the show that night for dinner. It was a friend of the family or something. I can't remember, but we would have been nowhere near Connecticut. We would have been down in Florida still, but in January. But anyway, so these folks take me out for dinner after the show. So I'm getting back, maybe it was a Sunday night, so it wasn't too late, or, whatever it was. But I get back, and, I have on my roomette on the clown car, I had a combination lock. And so I open up the door, slide it open, and there's clown Randy Brake, another classmate of mine from class of 85, and he pies me. My buddy Brad Zupp knew the combination to my room in case there was ever an emergency, and had let Randy in and locked it. But they thought I was coming home after the show. No, I came home like 3 hours later. So Randy had been in the dark, locked in my room, hiding for an extra 3 hours. That's the best pie I ever got.
That's amazing. I was walking backstage for one of the shows. It was my birthday, and a buddy of mine walked by, and just as he walked by, a group of clowns walked by. Well, he looks at me as the clowns are walking by and goes, "Happy birthday." The clowns stop. We both stare at each other. I'm like, "I'll meet you in Clown Alley." Just walked down there and waited. They got me.
I have no idea where the tradition, where it began, but it still continues to this day. If we're in China at a clown festival and it's somebody's birthday, they're getting a pie.
Oh, I don't tell people my birthday anymore.
He says he doesn't tell people's birthday anymore.
Oh yeah. If it's your birthday, I don't care where in the world we are, you're getting a pie.
Oh yeah, I was on Ringling for 2.5 years, but it worked out to where I got 3 pies.
Mm-hmm.
So
me, I got pied every year, whether it be clowns or train crew or somebody. They nailed me.
Yeah, I'd love to know where it actually came from, or if we went back to Ringling Clowns from the 70s, were you guys doing it then? Go back to the 60s.
Right?
Were you guys doing it? Where did this? Who was the first guy that decided to pie somebody on a birthday?
That would be great to know.
That would be great to know. So how was Clown College for you?
Clown College was an absolute dream come true. I remember the day that I got my acceptance letter.
Oh, wow.
I had applied
Do you
to the
still have
Circus
it?
World. I do somewhere. I've got trunks of stuff up in the attic. I've got it somewhere. But in January of 1985, I applied to the Circus World theme park in Florida, which had been owned by Ringling, but started by Ringling, later owned by Mattel. By that time, it was owned by a fellow named Jim Monahan, who I think was just a landowner of some sort, or I don't know exactly what he was. But he owned the park then. And I found out they needed to beef up their clown alley for the summer. So my buddy Joe Norton, who is already out of school, one of my clown partners, and I both applied just for the summer, and we both got accepted. So Joe was already out of school, so he moved down to Florida before me, found a trailer park community that had a lot of performers and people that worked at Circus World lived in, found us a trailer, fully furnished, mobile home.
There's a
And so,
lot of circus communities down in Florida. I live in Florida,
mhm.
so there's
Yeah, it was huge,
yeah.
and maybe someday I'll be one of those people living in Florida again.
You
But
never know.
yeah, I graduated high school June 9th, 1985. And 3 hours later, I was on a plane from Connecticut to Orlando because I was starting work the next morning. My dad's
Oh, wow.
parents had retired to Orlando. They picked me up. I stayed at their mobile home overnight, put my makeup on, in their bathroom, and then they dropped me off at the employee entrance of Circus World with my bags. And I
Oh,
spent the
wow.
next 3 months at Circus World in Florida, having a blast performing there. And then I was got the mail one day, and there was a letter from Ringling Brothers Clown College, and I'm like, oh, here we go, And I open it up, pop it open, and confetti flies everywhere.
Ah, ah,
And I knew it wasn't going to be confetti if it was a rejection letter. So I'm like,
that'd be,
woohoo! You have been
that,
accepted to Clown College 1985. Report on such and such a day. And so, we all get to the Venice Villas. The day before, we're all meeting each other. Where are you from? Who are you? Where are you from? Who are you? And um, the first night they were saying, what's it? Trying to learn everybody's name and what's your name? And that's when I switched from being Ron Johnson to being Toto Johnson. Toto would
okay,
be my
so,
clown name. Um, I got my clown name from my dad. Actually, we were watching a Liberace
okay.
TV special called Leapin' Lizards in 1977, and there was a marionette artist, puppeteer by the name Barclay Shaw, had a little clown marionette, and he was interacting with Liberace on the piano, and the marionette's name was Toto. And my dad said, "Oh, I didn't know you were going to be on TV." Because
Ah,
I'm a brand new little clown, and he thought I looked like this marionette, and so I adopted Toto as my clown name. Um, but
okay,
at
right
clown
on.
college, I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to use Toto as kind of like a nickname or a stage name, not just a clown name. So I became Toto Johnson, and I've been primarily Toto Johnson for the next 35 years until I started working in special education, elementary school. And then I went to Mr. Ron in school. But most people still know me as Toto Johnson.
Very nice.
So I became Toto Johnson at Clown College and spent 10 and a half weeks learning from the masters, Lou Jacobs and Frosty
Oh,
Little,
yeah.
How was
our
that?
acrobatic. It was, I mean, how many professions really do you get to hang out and learn from the best? Just imagine being a welder
Yeah,
and you have an idol, the greatest welder who ever lived is who's teaching you. Well, that
right,
happened
yeah,
over and over and over and over at Clown College. My acrobatics instructor was Justina Loyal, an absolute legend in the world of circus. Peggy Williams.
Hmm.
We had Ruth Chaddock. Steve Smith was my dean of Clown College. It was the cream of the crop. And I got to spend 10 and a half weeks with these people and
that's
learning
awesome.
so much. And they used to say at Clown College, some of the clowns on the road say, it's not going to make sense. It's not going to make sense here. Once you get a couple of years on the show, you'll go, that's what they meant. And that's absolutely true. You are bombarded with so much at Clown College, there's no way you can absorb it all. A couple of years on the road, then you go, oh, I'm starting to understand.
Right, yeah,
And now I'm 40 years in. This is 40 years since I went to Clown College. And I'm still going, yeah, now that's what that guy was talking about. So I'm
yeah,
still,
right.
still sinking in. But at the end of Clown College, after all these classes and makeup and I had one makeup that I was doing at Circus World, and Steve Smith said, he says, I know you've already been working professionally, but I want you to come in as a clean slate. And I said, yeah, I've got an idea. I want to try completely different makeup, still Auguste, but a different makeup. And I put it on the very first day we did Auguste. The first day we did Whiteface. The second day we did Auguste. And Ruth Chaddick was one of our makeup instructors, Bob Zrake being the other. And Ruth says, "You're on to something here." And I said, I had this idea, and it's been my makeup for 40 years now.
Now, can you
And
explain to the people what Auguste is?
yeah, Auguste. My understanding is Auguste. The terminology actually it comes from German, and it means like a clumsy, silly boy. So the
Okay.
Auguste is going to be in the hierarchy of clowns, the white face. The all white face with
Right.
accents in red or black or whatever. That's the smart one. That's the boss. That's the one that typically in the hierarchy would not get hit with a pie.
I
Um,
got you.
would throw the pie, but would never be hit with the pie. Now the Auguste is the clown that has like white eyes, white mouth, and then like a flesh tone of some sort, like a
Oh,
pinkish or a more flesh tone, surrounding the white. And that's the
gotcha.
clown that's going to fall down. That's the clown that's going to get hit with the pie. Um, and then you have
Okay.
like the tramp clown or a character
But yours
clown
was a
of that sort.
mixture, right?
Mine, no, my Auguste was about as Ringling Auguste as you could get.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mine was very, very, very traditional Ringling Auguste. Um, I was used on some posters for different festivals and things because my makeup was so extremely Auguste. Um, there was, yeah, it was just, um, I don't know how to say it. It was just like a lot of people would say when I think of Ringling Auguste, Toto Johnson is one of the makeups I think
Right.
of.
Yeah.
Very nice.
In the International Clown Hall of Fame, we have, I'm on the board of directors for the International Clown Hall of Fame in Baraboo,
Oh, wow.
Wisconsin. And in our
What's his
museum,
name?
the executive director
Yeah,
is Greg DeSanto,
Greg. Okay,
also from my clown college class. He was a
Oh,
Blue Unit
wow.
clown for
I
10
just
years.
spoke to him yesterday.
Yeah, one of the greatest clowns and best friends I have. I absolutely adore that man. Um, but in our museum, we have a whiteface exhibit with a wardrobe from Tammy Parrish and then some photos of white faces. Then we have the Auguste exhibit with wardrobe from Tom Parrish. But I'm one of the clowns photo that's in the exhibit as a typical example of an Auguste.
Nice.
Um, so I developed my makeup there, and and having Lou Jacobs there, and Lou was in his early 80s at the time, and he'd come in, and it's like I really don't know how much Lou is seeing individual clowns. He sees and teaches for the group, but I really don't
Right.
if he even notices I'm even here. And then one day Lou calls me over. Come here. He never lost his German accent. Clowny, come here, come here, come here. He says, you forget today. You forget that blue line under your eye. You have a blue line right there. You forget it.
Hmm.
And I always underlined my eyes with just a blue eyeliner. It wasn't like it was a big, you forgot your eyebrows.
Right.
No, it was a little line underneath my eye. Well, clown, you'll forget that today. I'm like, oh, Lou is seeing
Right.
everything
Wow.
about
Yeah. That's
Everything.
everybody.
amazing.
Yeah. So that was I won't say it was a turning point, but it was a big like, oh, these people are noticing everything that goes on here.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and then graduation comes. We have our graduation, and then a big 3-hour performance. All the clowns, and then the next day is contract day, and so we're all there at the arena in Venice, and sitting in the cafeteria watching films, chatting, and one by one they start calling people out. Greg DeSanto, Mr. Feld would like to see you. Kenneth Feld's up in his office. Randy Brake, Mr. Feld would like to see you. Rocco Paris, Mr. Feld would like to see you. And so all these people are going, never to be seen again, because they slip them out the back and send them to the back to the Venice Villas. Well, then they call 6 of us all at the same time. Felix Hinman, Sarah Coley, Ron Johnson, Max Levine. Mr. Feld would like to see you. And we're walking up the stairs in the arena up to his office, and I turned to everybody else and I went, "Where are the alternates?" Every year there's alternates, people that they want to hire, but there's not enough spots for them. And so we
Right.
go up there. Sure enough, Kenneth Feld says, every year there's clowns I want to hire, but there's not enough space. And, because, if 10 clowns leave the units, 10 clowns are getting hired. If 2 clowns leave the units, 2 clowns are getting hired. If 23 clowns are leaving the units, 23 clowns are getting hired.
Right.
So you never know who's getting hired, how many there are. And so we go up, and he says, every year, I just don't have spots. So, keep in touch with the show, and, we'll see what happens down the road, And almost every year, 1 or 2 clowns leave for whatever reason, injuries, or it's just not for them on the road.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely not for everyone.
Right. So, I go back to the villas. My mom had flown down from Connecticut. My dad's parents got permission to park their RV at the Venice Villas, and because they were in Orlando, they picked up my mom. They all went to my graduation. And I come back and I said, Mom, I'm an alternate. And I just said, I need a minute. And I went behind the villas and just cried my eyes out because I'm watching my dream die.
Yeah, right.
And then I went, okay, all right, I got it out. We flew back to Connecticut. I started clowning, but I wrote to Ken Feld. I wrote to Tim Holst, who at the time was performance director on the Red Unit. He wasn't, up the food chain yet. He was still performance director on the Red Unit. I wrote to Charlie Bauman on the Blue Unit, who was performance director. I wrote to Steve Smith. I wrote to Lou. I wrote to Frosty. I wrote to anybody in Ringling I could write to and said, if somebody leaves, I'm your man. I'm your clown. Hire me. And a couple months go by, and I had a clown club meeting. That clown club I was talking about. It was on a Wednesday night. My parents were out riding their motorcycle or something. And I'm not going to go to the clown club meeting because the Blue Unit was going to be on TV. It was their CBS TV special. It was going to be on that night. So I'm like, I'm going to skip the clown club meeting. I want to see, the Blue Unit special, my classmates, Greg DeSanto, Marge Talavera, Doug Boyd, Patty Went, a whole Casey O'Brien, a whole bunch of people, Ted Snyder. They're all going to be on this thing. And so I'm like, all right. So I'm going to stay home to watch this. Right before the show starts, phone rings. So I pick it up. May I speak to Ron Johnson? Well, speaking. Hi, this is Tim Holst calling. I almost dropped the phone. Yes, Mr. Holst. He says, well, we've had a clown leave the Red Unit, and we want to see if you're interested in joining. We'd like to, think about it for a week or so. I went, Mr. Holst, I don't have to think about it. I've been waiting for this call since I graduated clown college. When do you want me there? I will be there. When do you want me there? Where do you want me to go? And so he says, well, why don't you join? It was like the following week. I think they were closing in DC or someplace and then moving up to Binghamton, New York. They said, why don't you join us up in Binghamton, New York? So my parents get home. I said, you're not going to believe this. I just got a call from Ringling. I'm joining Ringling next week in Binghamton, New York. So my mom's crying. My dad's happy. And so I jump on the back of my dad's motorcycle and we go down to the clown club anyways to let them know. And so I never did see that TV special. That I'd stayed home. But it was just fate. I stayed home and Tim called me and I joined the next week in Binghamton, New York.
So was life on the train what you expected?
Yes, and 1,000 times more. Because I visited the train because my buddy Chris Allison being on the show the year before me, he had.
So you've already
he was kind of the same situation as me. He was an alternate in his class of '84, and during winter quarters, a clown left, and so he got the call. So he was on the Blue Unit. So I visited when the show had come to Connecticut. I visited, so I got to see the train. I knew how big the rooms were. When I was on, Ringling.
I got some questions about that.
Yeah, clown car, which was car 54 on the Red Unit at the time. Our rooms were 4 feet wide, 6 feet long, and 9 feet tall.
Oh, he had coffin.
And sharing refrigerators in the kitchen, one microwave, one stove.
Yep.
No showers. You had a shower at the arena. We didn't have a shower
on
the clown car.
Oh, no.
No. Yeah. We had no shower on the clown car.
See, I was in Pie Car, so we were lucky. Train runs, we had keys to the showers. We were allowed. We had 24 access to showers.
Wow.
See, I was train crew, so I had keys to the shower too. So.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't have a shower on the car until my fourth year, because fourth year clowns could negotiate for a bigger room or more money, or you could talk. And so at the time, I was engaged to a classmate of mine from clown college, Renee Coker.
Oh,
Um,
I got questions
and
about that in a little bit.
all right, and but
I'll be keep talking. I'll be
we
right
got
back.
we got a bigger room because my fourth year, she had been on the show, left, and came back. So she was technically a second year clown when it was my fourth year as a clown. So because of us being engaged, and that kind of put me over the edge for getting the bigger room. So my stateroom was not 4 feet wide; it was 8 feet wide
Whoa.
by 6 foot by 9 foot. So it was a bit more space.
Yeah,
And then
Oh wow,
we did have a
that's
shower
like a
on that
double
car.
state.
my
It's
room
like a double state.
was 3.5, 4 feet by I think 9 feet. I'm 6'3",
Uh-huh.
and they literally, for the bed, they had cut out a hole where the mattress was
Yep.
into
Yeah.
into where my cabinet was, so my feet would fit.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
so,
we had a clown my last couple of years on the show. He went to clown college in 1987. A fellow named Dave Didera, incredible clown, later became a Ringling boss clown for the Red Unit. But he was 6'6", and he would
oh,
have to kind of like sleep diagonally
oh,
Yeah.
in that 6 foot room. And I don't know I think he like sat up and slept diagonally. I have
how
no idea how
was
he did
it?
it.
How was it in the '80s on the circus train compared to because we were in, I was on for 15, 16, and a little bit of 17.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to know, like, did you have AC?
Uh, uh, in theory, same with heat. In theory,
Huh.
it was absolutely horrendous at times, and it's
Oh, I bet.
one of the things I miss the most about being on the show.
Oh,
We had no space, no privacy. You had this little tiny room with a little sliding door, um, but during a train run, you could walk through the cars, go to the pie car, hang out.
Yep.
You could be walking down the hall and you'd smell the best Hungarian food in this car. Then
I
you'd go over
believe it.
here and smell the best Spanish food in this car. And hanging out on the vestibule, watching the country go by.
Oh yeah,
Somebody watch the sunrise in the desert, watch the sunrise in the
I remember
mountains.
that.
yep.
I loved my little room on the train. It was, I could close that door, and yeah, you could still hear
Hmm.
people. Yeah, it would be too loud sometimes. Yeah, it was cramped. Yeah, sometimes the Donaker stunk. Um,
Oh yeah.
but I was living my dream. It was what I wanted to do. Um,
It was rough.
so
It was rough for us, and like Philadelphia, I think was the worst.
So, dude, Philly and New York train froze
hmm,
both times. We'd put people
uh-huh.
in hotels. Me being train crew, me and the rest of us had to fix the pipes.
Hmm.
It was
So that was a nightmare. Then loadout, we had a 19-hour loadout in New York
Oh,
because everything was frozen.
Can you imagine
wow.
telling people, "Hey,
Only
we
to
can't feed you because we don't have water"?
move the
Wow.
train 2 miles and do a 14-hour loading.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, it was, I mean, the train, I don't know, we called it the silver snail because it would take forever to get places.
Yep.
But oh my word. I can't remember where we were going from, but it was like a 4-day train run in 1986 from somewhere to El Paso, Texas. But I can't remember where. I'd
Hmm.
have to look it up in my route cards. But most of the clowns flew because it was 4 days off. And so I think out of
Yeah.
26 clowns, only 6 of us were actually on the train. And I was one of
Oh
them.
wow.
And by the end, we couldn't shower. We couldn't do anything. We had no shower. So you tried not to be ripe.
Yeah. Oh
and,
yeah.
and take a little spongy bath, but um, and I've got a picture of
Nowadays we
me.
have baby wipes. So
Yeah, I got a picture of me in my scrapbook of me and my buddy Brad Zupp wearing shorts and no shirts, just looking dazed and grungy. It's
oh, I
like, oh
bet.
my word! But it was the most fun, just
Oh yeah.
doing nothing and watching the country go by. And
Heck yeah.
but later on, when Renee and I came back, when Renee and I went to clown college together, Renee Coker, and then we had the 20th anniversary of clown college was in 1987, and they had a big reunion. They flew in both units, um, timed it to where it was like a 3-day train run for both units, and we went down and we had this huge reunion. There's a photo of 482 clowns, all
Oh wow.
graduates of clown college, in this great big photo that ended up as a centerfold for Life magazine. Meryl Streep was on the cover of that
Oh wow.
issue, and so Renee and I kind of renewed our friendship there, and it kind of grew into dating. And she came back on the road because of our relationship, but there was no clown spots open midway through 1988 when she was coming back to the show. So she joined concessions, and she was concession stand help for a guy named John Moss, who later went on to be a ringmaster with um, what show was it? Um, Kelly Miller, I think. He was a ringmaster for Kelly
Ah,
Miller and maybe some other shows, but then he was running a concession stand. So Renee um, would get like a room, have to roommate on the concessions car, and I just had my little 4x6. So we ended up buying a trailer from Ron and Barbara Miniger were also concessionaires, and they had gotten rid of a trailer. It was in storage in North Carolina or something, and they sold it to us for $1.
mm,
And
Yeah.
so Renee and her dad drove from Georgia, just outside Atlanta, um, up and got this trailer. It was putrid, because it'd been sitting in the sun with
Oh,
meat
I
in the
bet.
freezer or something. And
Oh,
so they cleaned it all out, and then Renee joined the show and worked concessions for 6 months. And then in 1989, she got back into the alley being a clown. We got rid of the trailer, but we kept our station wagon. And so we had a car and in 1989. So we lived on the train, but we had a car, which opened up a whole other world to
oh yeah, I
us.
bet.
And so if we didn't feel like driving, we had a couple of clowns that we trusted with our car, Larry Fortunato and Dickie Truth. Richard Toth was his real name, but we called him Dickie Truth. And they would drive our car every now and then if we wanted to take a train run. But most of the time, we pile a couple other clowns in the car and just go on adventures. The train might
Nice.
take 2 days to get somewhere that we could drive in 6 hours.
Oh
so I
yeah.
got a
So we
question.
would go sightseeing. We'd go to the San Diego Zoo and the Monterey Aquarium and SeaWorld and
Oh
wherever
yeah.
we could go. So
So I got a
kind of.
question. I saw in looking up in photos and stuff of just married photo with
A just married photo
yeah. Didn't you have
of of me and Renee. Yes, we had a circus wedding.
didn't you have a circus?
Oh
Yeah, that's
nice.
where I was.
Pardon me?
Yeah, that's where I was going. I was asking about the circus wedding.
Yeah, we decided that to ask the show if we could get married in the circus. We had met at clown college, and so so we met with some folks, and the show said, the company said yes, that'd be great. The company picked the day for us. They decided June 7th, 1989. It was going to be in Philadelphia at the old Spectrum Arena. And I think the reason they picked June 7th, 1989 and the wedding was going to be around 1 o'clock, before the 2 o'clock show or whatever it was going to be that day.
Mm.
Because during the wedding, we would hit 1:23 and 45 seconds, June 7th, 1989. So if you look at the numbers, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a row.
Nice.
So the show got a local judge, Bernard Goodhart, is an honest to goodness name, and he was known as
Huh?
the love judge or something. He would always marry people for free on Valentine's Day, and so he was, going to be the one that married us. And in New York City, even though we were already engaged, we had a fake engagement photos in our makeup in a carriage in Central Park with a big giant diamond ring. And Karen Bell had her spec wardrobe that year. Kind of looked a little bit like Cupidish with a big bow and arrow, and so we had her, with a big bow and arrow for the publicity photos
So they
leading up to
y'all
getting
went and
married in
asked
Philadelphia.
y'all went and asked if y'all could do this, and they turned it into a huge publicity thing.
Of course,
Nice.
yeah. It was. We
Why
were
not?
in Bride magazine. We were in the National
Oh, nice.
Enquirer. I mean, we were all over the news. We were on Entertainment Tonight the night of the wedding.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so we ended up with 2 elephants as bridesmaids. We went to
Uh,
Gunther Gable Williams. Hey, boss, we're getting married. Can we have elephants? Sure, sure. Anything you want. Sure, sure. And the show was just great. Anything we wanted. We had 2 of our bridesmaids were guys in drag. Dave Dodera, the 6'6" clown I was talking about.
Nice.
Our buddy Ron Hoffman. Karen Bell was maid of honor. My buddy Brad Zupp was off the show at the time. He had been on the show 2 years. This is now 4 years, 4 years into my time on Ringling. He came in from New York. He was living in New York at the time to be my best man. So we had, ushers, clowns. I mean, everybody was involved for the wedding in Philadelphia. We rode off in a just married on an elephant with a just married blanket
Yeah, I
That's
saw
on it.
that
awesome.
photo.
Yeah, it was just absolutely magical. And flash forward, Renee and I's marriage did not work out in the long run. We kind of went into separate directions in life, but she's still a very, very
It
dear friend
happens.
of mine. I cherish the years that we were together. We're friends on Facebook. I haven't seen her in years. She's still in Georgia. We haven't actually crossed paths in many years now, but we're in, I won't say daily conversation, but through our Clown College alumni group and just some emails. And every once in a while, we've talked on the phone over the years. So she is still a very, very dear person
Very nice.
to me.
I'm sure y'all got into some very mischievous pranks on the train together.
What have you heard?
I've been doing my research.
Oh, I want to know what you heard, because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Any good prank stories that you want to tell us?
Prank stories.
Like behind the
I wasn't.
scenes on the train.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. One of the best pranksters we had in the alley during my years on Ringling was a guy named Randy Brake. Clown College, 1985. Incredible clown. Still clowns full time to this day, although he's lived in Japan for about the last 25, 30 years. Has spent a lot of times with Circus Kinoshita in Japan and things like that. But Randy was a great prankster. And so he would, just be sitting on a stairwell at any given arena at any time, just sitting on a stairwell, drinking his Mountain Dew. Back then you could smoke backstage. And so he'd be having a cigarette or whatever he was doing and drinking his Mountain Dew. And he would just kind of like wiggle his eyebrows a little bit. We knew something was up. And he'd have a fishing line with a rubber snake on the end.
Oh, no.
And he would just be sitting there, but it'd be like in a hallway that, act people would be walking by, or concessionaires, and he'd be sitting there, drinking his Mountain Dew. And so, a couple of us sitting there, eating an Egg Mac from the pie car or something. And he'd be coming, he'd roll that snake in, slither across, and so it was great. I mean, it was a great prank. But who screamed the loudest? It'd be like the bottom guy from the teeterboard act, the person that would hold. It's always that 300-pound muscle guy, be like,
The big
screaming like
strong
a
man.
little girl.
That's funny.
But then eventually, too many people be sitting there watching, and then nobody got anymore because they knew, oh yeah, it breaks up this.
Yeah, something's going on.
So that was one of the best, the pranks. Now later years, I understand there's a lot more pranks going on and a lot more, stuff like that. But we were pretty calm compared to some of the later years on pranks.
We me and a buddy we were sidetracked, in the train sidetrack.
Uh-huh.
It was probably 2 o'clock in the morning, and we were out on the vestibule, and we heard this talking, and we looked outside. We dip our head outside and look, and about 3 cars down, the train was next to like a 7-Eleven, and this family had come over to get their picture next to the car. Well, they happened to be standing under a vestibule. So me and him snuck over, and when the lady said cheese, we popped up and photobombed. Scared the crap out of the people. But they loved it. They look up and saw us, and they're like, "Oh my god, that was great."
So
Go ahead, B.
what were your most exciting years in Ringling? Like, what was the most memorable moments? I would say.
My most exciting times on Ringling were from the day I arrived to the day I left. Literally.
Fair enough.
I mean, some of the highlights, of course, were, Renee and my wedding. I mean, it was just a magical day. The very first show, I still remember my very first show like it happened yesterday. I remember arriving at the arena, and Jim Vogelzang was the boss clown, and he says, get into makeup, and without any real rehearsal, I was out on the floor. Like opening number on the Living Unicorn Tour, 1986, he said, okay, you're with Jeff Tavasia, you're carrying a banner. Jeff, it's a 2-person banner. Ringling says Ringling Brothers Barn and Bailey on it, whatever. And he says, just follow Jeff. Once you got that banner, all you have to do is follow Jeff. And so the opening was all the clowns run out in the dark into ring 1. We all run out, and he says, okay, you're going to stand next to Renee on this side and Karen Bell on this side and just freeze. And the ringmaster, Christopher Antikyre, is going to do the opening announcement. And then there's going to be like, dun, dun, dun. And it's like, so strike 3 poses. And then you're going to follow Scott McBride, and you're going to kneel down next to Scott McBride. So when Scott kneels, you kneel. And then you're going to run out with Jeff, and you're going to get this banner, and just follow Jeff. And then, so I learned the show by doing the show. The only true rehearsal that I had to do between shows was for Manage, the big elephant number, because I'm out there with 22 elephants, and I got to be standing in the right place at the right time, and I'm in a giant fat suit, that weighed like 50 pounds. And so I had to actually rehearse that. But the rest of it, they just threw me out there and said, okay, this is what you're doing. In spec, you're carrying a giant, looked like a dragon and seahorse combination thing. And 4 clowns are carrying this giant dragon. And that's what you do. So that was easy. All I had to do was walk where they walked.
Interesting.
But the thing about the banner in opening was that Jeff and I had to run up this platform, and we were, we didn't call it center ring. We were ring 2, but we were ring 2 facing front track, ringmaster Ricky and Nisha Braun, Eric and Fanny Braun's children, and me and Jeff right there. I'm a brand new guy, and I am in like the prime spot in opening.
Nice.
And I was just so scared. I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life. I don't think I've ever been so exhilarated in my entire life. And it is burned into my memory like I was there yesterday. And I'm like there almost in tears, so scared, so excited, so exhilarated, going, your dream is now. You are where you've been wanting to be since you were a kid. And,
Very nice.
And I was still a kid. I just turned 19, but it was absolutely the best.
Did you form any? Do you have any kind of pre-show ritual you used to do?
Pre-show, you know what? I yes and no. I was one of the clowns that would always take the first bus in. And I don't know about when you guys were on the show, but we would have 3 buses before the show and 3 buses after the show.
Yeah,
I was always the first bus guy before Renee and I had our car. I was always first bus guy because I like to get in, get my makeup on, and be ready. Other clowns would take last bus and have to slam their makeup on as fast as they could, and that's what they needed to do. to get ready for the show. They wanted that adrenaline hype of getting their makeup on, last possible minute. Um, but I like to go in, take my time, put my makeup on. I would every day I would go and check my stilts, make sure my bolts were good, make sure
So I got one
the
question.
rub. Yeah,
What was the fastest time you had to put on your makeup and be on the floor?
fastest I ever did it is I had overslept, missed all the buses on a
Oh no.
Saturday, started hightailing it, knowing I'm missing the first show. I'm not going to get paid for the first show, whatever. And somebody, I can't remember who, might have been, I don't know if it was Cecil, it was somebody high up in concessions. Um, but somebody picked me up. Could have been the paymaster. I can't remember who it was, but somebody saw me, picked me up, and from the time I walked into the arena, I had 15 minutes until come in. And I got undressed, makeup on, full clown wardrobe in 13 minutes.
Wow.
Nice.
Um, fastest I ever got ready. I was normally, when I developed my makeup at clown college, it took me an hour to do. On the road, I was consistently 20 minutes. But that day, because I didn't powder, I normally would powder twice. I'd get part of my makeup on, powder, then do the rest. I just put it all on wet, slapped it on, and I wasn't late for coming. Um, but I wasn't happy with my makeup, so between shows I took it off and put it back on properly. Um, but it was perfectly presentable. I mean, they would not have let me out on the floor if it was just.
Right.
Um, so the show was fine with how I look, but I wasn't because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to my makeup.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Fastest I ever went from street clothes to full clown was 13 minutes.
That's crazy. Wow.
So what? How long were you at Ringling for?
4 years. Yeah, 86. Well, I joined back in the 80s. Both units would go into full winter quarters. Later on, they if it was second year of the show, they would like towards the end of my time on Ringling. The new clowns would come to Rosemont for 2 weeks. The graduates of clown college that were coming on the road and would train for 2 weeks because the show was staying the same going into the second year. So the only difference was a few new clowns would be coming in and a few new showgirls. So they started bringing those into Rosemont. But when I first joined the show, both units went into full winter quarters, 5 weeks. So that in 86, the blue unit was getting the new show. So they went into winter quarters. And then everything got pulled out. And then the red unit went into 5 weeks of winter quarters. So by the time the red unit went on tour, it's like February or something. I have no idea when the show went on tour. And so I got called like a month and a half, 2 months into the season. So, so I was there for, 9 or 10 months, out of the, of that year. So I did most of the tour in 86. And then I did 87, 88, and 89. And in 88, I actually left the show for 5 weeks and went to teach at clown college. My main job was I became one of the tall stilt walkers. Hated stilt walking at clown college, but when I got on the road, I tried it again, found I loved it, became one of the tall
Yeah,
stilt
there you go.
walkers. And I was actually, we had 2 stilt walking instructors at clown college in 1988. Tammy Parrish from the blue unit taught the first 5 weeks. And then I went in for the second 5 weeks and wrote the stilt portion of the graduation performance.
Y'all guys had quite a few still performers on Ringling, right?
We would have we'd always have 5 when I was on the show, 5 tall stilt walkers that would walk in opening and in spec. So my first year on the show, I was not a stilt walker, um, and but I saw like the stilt walkers. It was kind of a great spot, because there's only 5. And some years there's only like one, like in 1987, 88 on the King Tusk tour, there was only one stilt walker in opening. So you're the guy. And in 87, it was a guy from my clown college class, John Griggs, was that solo stilt walking spot. And then John left to become a trapeze catcher for the Soaring Stars trapeze act. And so then Brad Zupp moved up to John's stilts from 9s to 10s and became that solo stilt walker. And then the next year, Brad had left. So I became that solo stilt walker in opening. And then we would have, and on the King Tusk tour, we had 5 in um, spec that would walk. And then on the Gunther Gable Williams farewell tour, we had 5 in opening. Uh, and then we had on shorter stilts, because we were gladiators, there were 3 of us on painter stilts for spec. So we only had the tall stilt walkers on the Gunther Gable Williams tour in opening.
Right on. What? How do you deal with, or how have you dealt with people who are just plain terrified of clowns?
I haven't had much problem with people being terrified of
Really?
clowns. No, not my audiences for where I've been performing. Of course, on Ringling, back in 40 years ago, you never heard of such a thing. And then when it became this phenomenon a few years ago, here in the U.S. and in England and things like that, I was performing a lot, over in China at that time, and we'd have thousands of people at our show. None of that scary clown nonsense
So
was happening. Um, you
how
know,
how is the? I know. Sorry, I know overseas, especially Asian countries, they got their culture. How are they with clowns? They got a big
it was
clown culture. Or they?
been huge. Um, Now, I went to the very first international clown. My understanding, it was the very first international clown festival to be held in China. It was sponsored by the national government in Liuzhou, China, back in 2007. And 60 clowns were picked to go. A lot of former Ringling clowns, clowns from different countries. And I was working in a stage show with Eric Zander that I talked about on Loomis Brothers Circus from the Clown College class of '88, Ringling clown. He was one of my partners, and a guy named Kevin Brown, who was a Blue Unit clown from the Clown College class of '84. And so we had a stage show, and there was 5 or 6 different performances on each stage, and we would just rotate. And so I think each show had to be performed 3 times, but there might be 4 or 5 different shows on that stage,
Oh,
so people
wow.
see all these different clowns, and there's all these stages, and 60 clowns from around the world, and they had a big parade for us, and we had like 1 million people show up for a parade for 60 clowns, and they built these elaborate
Oh,
floats for us, and it was insane.
How did that make you
And
feel?
we were looking around, and it was like, are you kidding me? It was crazy. We were like rock stars. The stages they built for us in this park were like, you could have put Van Halen on that stage. It was crazy. Um, and the MCs that they had for the shows were all famous actors and actresses and television personalities. And, so it was like, it was just absolutely crazy. And so I've been back to China 8 times for different festivals
oh wow. Oh,
years.
man.
And it's just wild. And then a few years ago I started going to India for some
Oh,
clown
yeah.
festivals. Some folks, Martin and Roshni D'Souza, um, have a production company in Mumbai, and they've run these international clown festivals, and they become family to me over the last 13, 14
Sure.
years. And my most recent trip to India for them was back just this past November. Had to shave my beard and put my old Ringling makeup on. It was great. But
That's
you know
awesome.
we did a show in Bangalore, India, for a shopping mall, outdoor shopping parking lot, huge shopping mall. And we got there in Bangalore to do this show. This was right before, like literally, COVID was starting, and I was in India, and we didn't know it was COVID yet. But I literally
Oh,
came
wow.
back from that trip to India in January of 2020, and we know what was happening then. Um, but we get there, and I see just a sea of chairs, just chairs as far as you can see with this stage. And I'm kind of like laughing, going, "What do they think? There's like 5,000 chairs here. What do they think is going to happen? This is, we
Jeez.
always have good crowds in India, but this is ridiculous. No, Every single chair was full. People sitting in the aisles, people inside the mall looking out at the windows. We had like 5,000 people watching
Holy cow.
clown show. It was like a 90-minute show. I was working with incredible clowns from Peru and Mexico, and Martin, was Flubber the clown, working in India. Um, my buddy Jeff Potts, who's from Canton, Ohio area. Um, so there's like 5 clowns, from other countries in this show, and some Indian clowns that we had helped train. That Martin calls his punchinellos. We're doing meet and greet, and then Martin himself is like emceeing and in some of the acts. And we had like 5,000 people there.
Holy cow.
Our heads were exploding.
I bet.
Working in these other countries, and it all kind of goes back to that scary clown thing. No, that scary clown thing was a weird thing that was happening here. I actually looked it up, the fear of clowns. Some people call it coolophobia, which is actually the fear of hiding the human face. So, wearing a Santa
Yeah.
Claus or a Mickey Mouse or whatever, anything that hides the face would all fall underneath this fear. But it's not a big fear. Of the top 100 fears, I looked it up, clowns fall in at number 88.
Holy cow. Wow.
Whoa. More people are afraid of butterflies than clowns. More people
No kidding.
zippers than clowns. More people are
Wow.
afraid of 87 other things.
Right? Yeah. Holy cow. That's crazy.
So I think it all got blown out of proportion. Bunch of
Yeah.
people jumping out
lot
of
of things
bushes
do.
with rubber masks. It was a bunch of nonsense. And we were getting 5,000 people at a show in Bangalore, India.
So where did you
That's
go after Ringling?
Renee and I left Ringling at the end of the 89 season because we had an offer from a circus in Sweden called Circus Olympia. Family owned, one ring tented circus, at about 700, 750 people in the tent. We had gotten an offer from them to come be their clowns. And at that time that we knew of, not a whole lot of Ringling clowns were working overseas. Every once in a while you hear about something, but it's a lot more prevalent now. But back then we really weren't hearing a whole lot about Ringling clowns going overseas. So we talked to a couple of good friends of ours that we trusted and valued their opinions, and they said, take this. You've been on Ringling for 4 years, which is double the amount of time that the average clown stay was. It was 2 years was the average stay when I was on the show. So I had doubled that. And he said, take this. And so we did. And we went over to Circus Olympia in Sweden. One show a day, 7 days a week for 6 months. And we took some of our Ringling material and had to stretch it out to fill. Instead of being a 2.5 minute spot, we would take a 2.5 minute, 3 minute gag and made it 6 or 7 minutes to more of an entree. And the owners, Herbert and Henrika Benson, wonderful, wonderful people. We lost Herbert a few years ago, but Henrika is still presenting her dog act in Circus Olympia to this day. It keeps growing
Nice.
bigger, more beautiful. Their son Nicholas, who was like 11 when I worked with him, is on the show. Beautiful show. I still follow them on Facebook. Wonderful, wonderful show. They were so good to us. And they actually invited us back for another year. So we went to, and then the next year, so we were in Circus Olympia in 1990. We went back in 91, brought my clown college roommate, former Ringling clown, John Winslow. So we became a trio. And between the 2 years, we worked for Carnival Plaza in Tokyo, Japan, which was a circus-themed restaurant that a lot of Ringling clowns had been working at, and we had been recommended. So we were in Sweden for 6 months, then went to Japan for 6 months, then went back to Sweden for 6 months. And then Renee got out of performing after our second year in Sweden, and stayed in Georgia, and gotten a townie job, as we might call it.
Right.
And I started producing a show for Riverside Amusement Park in Agawam, Massachusetts, which later became Six Flags New England. Brad Zupp, that I mentioned before, and I worked there. My buddy JB Dick, Jellybean the Clown, who was a school teacher and a school principal that I'd worked with at Circus World that summer of '85. He and I had done some projects together, and so we produced the Circus of Clowns with a young kid named David Garrity, who was 17 years old, who was a magician. We had the show together. Well, David ended up working at Riverside Park for like the next 20 years. He's still a full-time magician to this day.
Oh wow.
He's probably in his mid 40s now. He was 17 when we brought him on to work with us. But we produced the Circus of Clowns. Next year, Brad Zupp and I worked with another clown college graduate by the name of Gordy Klein, and we had a 20-minute clown juggling comedy show for a couple of years. And then I worked out of makeup for the first time. Got a job in a comedy stunt show at Six Flags over Georgia,
Oh nice.
based on the Police Academy series.
Today's episode proudly features our friends at Shocks. We've been using Shocks headphones since 2020, and they've completely transformed the way we work and record. With bone conduction technology, they deliver crystal clear sound while keeping our ears open to the world around us. They're lightweight, comfortable for long sessions, and the audio quality, absolutely top tier. A huge thanks to Shocks for being part of the Off the Rail Circus family.
So Police Academy was a show that I found out about and auditioned for and ended up getting the lead role of Zed. Now, in the Police Academy movie series, Zed was played by Bobcat Goldthwait.
Okay.
But in this case, they kind of combined the Bobcat Goldthwait character with the Steve Guttenberg character and kind of made a combination, but turned him into a beach dude, like a surfer, music playing guy who gets robbed by a mafia guy and a kung fu guy. Cool. And he joins the Police Academy to get his money back from his hat, from street performing. And so then all the characters come in and all this wacky adventure goes on. Right, so it's a comedy stunt show. And I did that at Six Flags over Georgia. And that was right about the time that Renee and I were getting divorced. So, I knew I had to figure out my life. And turns out Circus Casino from Las Vegas was opening a riverboat in Tunica, Mississippi. And 3 Ringling clowns that I knew were all going to be working there. And they said, hey, you should come work here with us. We need another clown. So I ended up going to Memphis, moving to Memphis, right after my divorce and finishing up at Six Flags. And so I worked for 2 years at a Circus Casino with my buddy Brad Zupp again, and a clown by the name of Danny Devaney, who I think went to clown college in '89, was on the red unit, and Dana Nelson, who I'd worked with as a clown on Ringling, and he later became our assistant performance director. He was from clown college 1983. So there was the 4 of us, although Brad worked out of makeup. He was a juggler at that point. And then a local Memphis area magician by the name of Tony Brent, who has worked in Orlando for many years. He has the Out of Control dinner show in Orlando at, I think it's Wonderworks, or it's like this building on International Drive that's upside down. It has all these wacky things in it.
Yeah, that's the Wonderworks building.
Yeah, and so that's where he has a magic show there. He's been many, many years. Incredible performer. So we were there, and we did strolling entertainment and represented the casino for a couple of years, and then it was going to change themes. It's going to become Gold Strike Casino, which is still to this day. They didn't need us anymore, so we all lost our jobs. And Brad and I ended up picking up a 6-week contract on the Silja Scandinavia cruise line for a hula baloo cruise, traveling between Stockholm, Sweden, and Turku, Finland, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for 6 weeks, and doing our show. And then I auditioned for a job I had for the next 22 years for a large hamburger corporation as their iconic character. And so I worked for Ronald McDonald for almost 22 years. That's what brought me to Davenport, Iowa, and worked for incredible owner operators in my little market. and did a lot of charity work, did a lot of educational school shows about reading and believing in yourself and having strong character. And so I did that, and
How
then I
was
would get
that
time to
being
go over.
a Ronald
Um,
McDonald clown?
pardon me.
How was that being a Ronald clown?
It was I when I took the job, I didn't think I was going to like it very much because it was so different than this wacky Auguste that I'd been doing, for 12 years up to that point full time. But I got here and I found out that my market gave me a lot of freedom to do the character as I wanted to do it. And I never made it slapstick or anything like that, but it turned out that it had a lot of freedom to it. I thought I was going to be, very, with
Locked in.
blinders on. You have to do it exactly this way, but no, it was. So I was just like, it was like me as a person, not as a clown, but kind of like me as a person, just a little bit bigger, and just being everybody's friend. So as I was still, a little wild and a little crazy and a lot of energy, but it wasn't, falling down and taking pies. It's not that kind of clown.
Hmm.
But it turned out I absolutely loved the job and had it for almost 22 years. And, there were times of the year that I
Okay.
wouldn't be busy, like
Yeah.
right when school would start. Well, school assembly programs weren't starting yet. So I knew that my
Jeez.
Septembers were pretty much open. Well, September's is when some of those clown festivals in China started going on. So I'd go to
Oh,
China for 3 weeks. So I was fitting in all these overseas things. I went to England 8 times for the world's oldest clown organization. It's called Clowns International, and they would have these big festivals back, years ago. And so I would go to England. I went to the Azores of Portugal. I went to Northern Ireland. I went to
Did
um,
you
Ulft Holland, all through Clowns International, and some of the clowns I met through there. But I would have these open
did you at
times
least
when I
get free
could do
fries?
that. So the
I mean,
McDonald's job, you know,
open that
opened up a
window.
lot of overseas work for me too. And then, a new
there
CEO
you
came
go.
into McDonald's and said, "We don't need this Ronald character anymore." I got one free meal for every appearance I did. I did. So I didn't pay for McDonald's for 22 years.
Very nice.
Um, but then, things changed at McDonald's and we all lost our jobs. And so I was like, now what do I do? And a local magician had started a science show company doing science shows. So I started doing some work through him, and then we added some bubbles and a few other things.
Oh,
And so I
good.
was doing some shows, and still working overseas a lot, going to all these different countries in India, and then COVID hit, and everything stopped. And so I'm like, well, now what do I do? And thankfully, some of the programs the government did with added money added to unemployment, and they made it where independent contractors, which what most of my career had been, independent contractors were never able to get
Very nice.
unemployment, but they changed the rules, and so I was able to get. So I
Oh
made
yeah,
enough
there
to
you go.
keep paying my mortgage, um, and then I started working for an elementary school as a substitute paraeducator, primarily working in elementary schools, in special education, and so I started doing that and doing some shows, and then
Yeah,
just life circumstances, I'm getting older. I mean, I'm not old. I'm 58 now, but I was getting into my mid 50s, and looking at my life, and parents are
right.
aging,
Yeah,
and my dad was gone, but my mom and her husband, they're starting to get older, and they're in good health, and everything else, but they're getting older, and maybe I don't need to be overseas
there
as
you go.
much, as many months at a time like I had done years before. So I'm like, well, let me look a little bit more into making this paraeducator thing a little more permanent instead of just being a substitute and working when I wanted. So I took a regular
Very nice.
position um, at Mark Twain Elementary School in Bettendorf, Iowa, as a special education paraeducator. Love my school, love the students. some of the most dedicated people I've ever worked with. It doesn't matter what your job is in my elementary
There you
school,
go.
we are all equals in education. So it
That's
doesn't
the way
matter
it
if you're
should
the
be.
custodian, the people making the meals, if you're a teacher, if you're a para, if you're a secretary, if you're the principal, we are all a family. Everybody will do everybody's job needed to be done. And so I'm all in love with it. Yeah, that's the way it should be. So I'm now in my
Oh
fifth
wow.
year full time at Mark Twain as a special ed para. And then 3 years ago, I was asked to be a professional therapy dog handler. We were getting a therapy dog for our school. And so he's owned by our school librarian, and then the third person that went for the training was our art teacher.
Oh
We
wow.
took our spring break, went to Concordia, Kansas, to a place called Cares Inc., one of the premier assistance dog training programs
That's
in the
amazing.
country. And so we get our therapy dog for our school. And but in our class was also diabetic alert dogs and PTSD dogs and seizure alert dogs, and just all kinds of. They train all kinds of different dogs, but we were getting therapy dog for our school. So I'm one of his handlers, and
That's
so I
awesome.
get him now for part of the day. I always have him during recess. I work, part of my job is I'm working three
Oh yeah,
grades
very
of
nice.
their recess, and so I always have our dog at recess, and the kids can just come see him. But
Oh
other
man.
times he's in the library, maybe kids have a hard time reading in front of their class, but they'll read to Fletcher.
Yeah,
And
that's
so, and
amazing.
then, maybe a kid's, we've had kids come to school and grandma died that morning and mom and dad got things to handle. So kids going to school and of course they're upset. Well, here, come spend some time with Fletcher, just,
That's good.
you know, and so he's got a
Yeah.
lot of different duties. He's a yellow lab. He's now um, about 4.5 years old now. And so, yeah, so I just adore what I get to do at school. I pull my hair out sometimes, but so now I'm part time performing during the school year, and then summers I'm looking at working full
Yeah.
time as a performer in the
Sure.
summers, of course, but during the school year, it's also
Yeah.
looking at as I'm getting closer to retirement. If I stay enough years
Yeah.
at school, I'll get a
Definitely.
little bit each month. It'll never be a full retirement check, but I'll if you get an extra $250 because you spent a few years in the school system a month, that's $250. So I have to look at the practical aspect of it also. But besides the fact that I love what I'm doing there,
Oh yeah, I
and
bet. Yeah.
going from being a circus
Interacting
clown
and
and a family entertainer to the school was not as big of a jump as I thought it was going to be. A lot of the skills that I've learned as a
nice.
performer tie
That's cool.
directly into working in the school system. Yeah. And all the kids know what I do. They all know that Mr. Ron was a Ringling clown, and at our school carnival that we have towards the end of the year every year, I'm on my stilts making balloon
That is
animals
great.
for the kids,
Very
and
nice.
in PE, if it's basketball, all the kids know I'm going to juggle 3 basketballs for them, and so yeah, the kids all know um, what I did and what I do.
Well, what do you? You said you performed during the summers, right?
Yeah, I perform in the summers. Working these science shows and bubble shows, foam cannons, butterfly exhibits, all through a local magician who started this company a few years ago. I've written shows for science shows. I've written bubble shows, um, collaborated on writing shows, and so that's what I do in the summer. Plus, I do some stilt walking if it comes in, or balloon sculpting, like this couple days ago. Last weekend,
Nice.
I had a Friday night a balloon sculpting event that I was doing for a running club, and then the next day I had a balloon sculpting that I was doing for Armed Forces Day at the local arsenal that was open to the public, and so I do some balloon sculpting, some stilt walking, a little bit of this, a little bit of that over the summer. Um, and then during the school year, it's after school hours or on weekends. And but I last November I did get permission to take a couple of weeks
Nice.
off from school, went to my principal and said, I don't know what you're going to think about this, but I got an offer to go to India again for the 10th anniversary of this International Clown Festival that, I was right in at the beginning of. Matter of fact, first trip to India I went was just the formation of the idea. And so 13 years ago, I went to India for the first time, 14 years ago, I guess now. But he was, Martin and Roshni D'Souza were going to have the 10th anniversary grand celebration, and bringing in all these clowns from around the world to do these lavish theater shows. And he wanted me a part of it. And I went to my school and I said, is there any way I can get a couple of weeks off? And I had some personal days saved up, but not 2 weeks worth. And
Not enough to
and my
go.
principal said, we will figure out a way to make this work. And he went to the district, and the district said, we are going to make this work. And they gave me permission to take those 2 weeks. And then we planned it just perfect. So I got almost 3 weeks in India because of weekends. And so I went over to India, had to shave my beard. I grew my beard because of the science. I wanted to look kind of like a professor. And then I found I loved having a beard. And so I hadn't shaved in 4.5 years until last November. Because when I had
Yeah.
clowned now and then, it's been more simple, like a nose and a little bit of eyebrows. But I've always had my beard. I haven't done my Ringling look in 4.5 years, and I had to shave to go to India. And so I went to school on a Friday, shaved that evening, went back to school on Monday, and the kids were, Mr. Ron, what did you do? And some of the older kids were, oh, yeah, older kids, fourth and fifth graders. Oh, Mr. Ron, you look so much younger now. But I had one second grader come up to me that was one of my kids when she was in first grade. It was one of my students I worked with daily. And she said, Mr. Ron, are you trying to scare me? So the older kids liked the how young it made me look, but the younger kids were like, when are you going to grow that back? So as soon as I got back from India, it
They're probably
started it
confused.
started growing again.
They're
Yeah,
confused. You look
yeah.
so
I
different.
looked I
But
looked very different without the beard. Um,
we are we are just about out of time. So I would like to thank you for coming and sharing your story. I definitely want you back here. You're great. I
I've
love
had
hearing
the
you talk.
best time, and if
Um,
you let me, it would be midnight, and I'd still be talking. So, I just
well,
love it.
in closing, I
Yeah.
do have one
So do
more
I. So
question
we got two more
before we
questions.
go.
Okay.
What? All right. What piece of advice would you give a young kid today coming up that wants to be
You know what?
a
I've had a
performer?
couple of kids that came to me. One was a 14-year-old kid. Dear Mr. Johnson, he wrote to me, sent me an email. Dear Mr. Johnson, I want to be a Ringling clown. What advice can you give me? Well, that kid was a guy named Steve Copeland, who became a Ringling clown, has worked all over the world with his clown partner Ryan Combs. They were at the Circus Festival of Monte Carlo.
Wow.
I mean, they boom. I
Wow.
mean, major stars. Another kid that I met he would used to come to the buffet because it was the only place kids could go at Circus Casino in Tunica, Mississippi. A kid from Memphis, Tennessee, wanted to be a Ringling clown. Kid by the name of Larry Clark became a Ringling clown. Now he produces his own shows,
Wow.
his own circus at
Wow.
times in Memphis. And again, he's worked all over. They both came to me for advice when they were teenage kids. And, and so I
Right on.
said, believe in what you do. Absolutely believe in what you do. Give it all you have. Believe in what you do. If you believe in what you're doing, if you truly believe, your audience is going to believe. But if you're just faking it, the audience is going to see
That's
right through it. And I said,
true.
just that's basically it. Give all you can. I'm not perfect. I know I'm not the best clown in the world. Um, but I truly believe in what I'm doing. I love it with everything I've got. Um, and so, the that's I guess that's the best advice I can give is
Awesome.
if you want to do it, and find ways to do it.
Right on. I
You
love it.
know that that's
Right.
I
that's
guess my
really it.
my last question before we let you go would be, where out of everywhere in the world you performed has been your favorite place, and for what reason?
That is a completely impossible question to answer because every gig I've ever done has had something that no other gig has had.
Okay.
Ringling, I mean, I can narrow it down to certain things. Ringling, because it was Ringling, because it was the what I considered the pinnacle. Um,
Hmm.
so Ringling is definitely, but these gigs, I mean, going to the first International Clown Festival in China, how magical is that?
Yeah.
Um, these clown
Right?
festivals in India, you go to a mall and there's 5,000 people waiting for you. It's not a
Yeah.
big arena, it's folding chairs in a parking lot. 5,000 people came. Um, so I can't narrow it down to one thing. I got invited. Matter of fact, my invitation's hanging right up there on the wall. I got invited through a show I was doing in England to go to Monaco as an honored guest of Princess Stephanie of Monaco to perform an event called
Holy cow!
Festa
Wow.
de Monte Carlo that was in the Princess Grace Theater. Um, it was a clown competition in the first portion of the show. And then the second portion of the show was myself and my buddy Bluey Brattle from the Southampton, England area. And we were like the honored guests. So before the show, Princess Stephanie arrives. We get to take a photograph with her. She appeared on stage with us for the finale to announce the winners of the competition portion. Who gets to do that? Tell that to that 10-year-old kid. You were talking about, what would you tell that kid? One day you're going to perform as an honored guest of Princess Stephanie of
Yeah,
Monaco.
right
Again,
on.
head explodes. So I can't pinpoint it to one thing. You know what's the best thing from that first performance on June 21st, 1977, to what I'm doing right now, to whatever that next performance is. That's the best.
Nice.
Perfect. And I'll tell you what, that's a perfect place to end. And so I'd just like to say, once again, thank you, Toto. We're your host. I'm R. This is B. And until next time, we'll see you down the road.